Going to call the meeting to order. So good afternoon and welcome to the December 15th, 2022 meeting of the Fitchburg Historical Commission. I now call this meeting to order. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast in the near future. I ask that anyone else in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by stating, by standing or making present and stating your name and address. All right. I see, Sam, are you here on the phone?
Yes, I just arrived.
Okay, terrific. Sam Blair, member of our commission, has called in also. Thank you. So just quickly, a roll call of the members present. And my name is Keith Chenot. I'm the chair of the commission. I see Ellen DiGeronimo, member of the commission, Don Ostrowski, member of the commission. And let's see, I believe in the audience also, Andy Lapasti is here. And any others present at the meeting that I missed that are members of the commission? Okay, I think that's it. We have a quorum. We're definitely moving ahead. At this time, let me bring up, I'll see if I can present here. And I think I have presentation access. Charles Sterno-Mello is just joined us by Zoom also. Charles is a member of the commission, so we have a good turnout. Megan Donahue cannot make it to the meeting, and she said that she would be absent today. At this point, we'll open the meeting for any public comment for the commission. Is there any public comment for the commission at this point? Let me see if I can. And I'm hoping to present screen. Can you see the agenda on your presentation at this point?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So our second item is review and approve minutes for the November 17th meeting. A draft copy were sent to the members. Are there any corrections, additions to the meeting? And if none,
I move that we approve the minutes of the November 17th, 2022 meeting.
okay, thank you, Ellen. Do we have a second?
I second. Don seconds.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. That's unanimous. Members present. Item 3, review and approve minutes for the November 29th, 2022 meeting and public hearing.
I move that we approve the minutes of the November 29th, 2022 meeting and public hearing.
I have, as a matter of discussion, maybe then we'll wait. I'm not quite sure the procedure here. I'd sent an email out with, I believe, 6 or 7 comments, and I can read through those for members present, or if you recall the email, it was a few. One was adding page numbers since it's kind of a long minutes, and if it's printed out, it might get disordered. And second, on the page number 2, I believe I had 6 minor corrections, and I can read those if you would like, or if I offer those as amendments to the minutes as submitted.
move that we approve the minutes submitted by Keith Chanel as part of the approved minutes for the November 29th, 2022 meeting and public hearing.
Okay, as amended. Do I have a second to approve the amendments to the minutes and the
I
minutes?
second the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstaining? 0. Opposed? 0. That's unanimous. Members present. Thank you very much. And moving on to the Ivor Johnson, item number 4, the Ivor Johnson Haywood Manufacturing Mill Project renovation to verify building code flood hazard area historic building exemption. So our guest present had presented to us before, I believe about a year ago, on the progress of their renovation of the Ivor Johnson Mill project on River Street, or 3 of the buildings. I've asked in their, this is something we should probably do as a commission and make a formal vote on this. We had a previous letter of to the building commissioner, where at the time last year we had, from the drawings we saw, we had verified that they were heading in the direction of maintaining the historic quality of this building. Subsequent for this particular meeting, I had asked, and our guests had certainly willingly supplied their applications for National Register listing for this portions of the mill project that they're working on. And just so we had some verification, and thank you very much for presenting those. You've also sent some updated design drawings of what you're proposing. And just for our members and any of the public that'll be watching this, wondering if maybe you could make a brief introduction of what you're hoping to do, and perhaps maybe show your design drawings again. So anyone would like to speak from our guests?
Sure. Rich Darche here. I'm the managing partner of the IVJ Group. With us today are a couple of my other partners, Aldo Mezzafero and Greg Moran, and the head of our architectural group, John Cavaney, and our consultant on the tax credits from Epsilon, the principal, Doug Keller. What our goal today, first of all, I want to thank Keith, you and the commission for the opportunity to jump into this meeting today. We know you have a lot on your agenda, and you had mentioned, well, maybe we can work in December or January, and I had said hopefully we can get into December. So we really do appreciate your help to have this opportunity to update you on our project. I think the main point that we're trying to define today is an exemption for our property against the building commissioning code, as far as being able to renovate the property while it's still in the flood zone. What has happened in the last year since we had an informal meeting with the group, we were under the impression that the new FEMA maps were going to be activated in April of this year, April of 2022. We had a contact at USGS, and he said, yeah, it looks like it's going to happen. And the good news about the maps for us is it lowers the BFE about 3 to 4 feet. So all of the first floors of our building are out of the new flood maps, as well as a good portion of the property. So we decided it would be in our best interest to wait to get that confirmed, then to put our material together for the planning board and to start the renovation on the project. Well, to say the least, we got delayed. We went from April to June to July, August, September. And unfortunately, we got some very disappointing news in October of this year that that the new maps now will not be launched or activated until at the latest January 24, earliest December 23. So with that information, you know, we've been working diligently on trying to get this project started for the last couple of years here. We first had a major cleanup that we took care of, and then worked through coming up with the proper parking, the proper mix of the apartments and so forth. And really the last thing we were waiting for was the maps to be updated, and then we would figure we would be in great shape to present to the planning board. So with the latest information that we received in October, we went back to a letter, Keith, that we got from you back in December of 21, because I think your group had a meeting back then discussing it, saying that from all the information we had supplied, that we would fall under the exemption as being an historic property that was going to be renovated, you know, to the nature of it was when it was built, you know, 200 years ago. So we wanted to clarify with the commission and the building department that in fact we would be okay to begin the renovations, and we're looking at a late spring, early summer of 23 on the buildings, with the hope that the new maps will kick in December or January of next year, and we would minimize the work on the site, but we'd focus on the buildings. We just want to be certain that if we are going to focus on the building renovations, that we are exempt from the code related to a flood zone. I think that's pretty much. John, you know more of the details of what the exemption that you cited.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the specific exemption we're looking for is in Massachusetts Building Code IEBC, so the International Existing Building Code, Chapter 12. There's an exception for historic buildings within that basically says if a project is going to continue being considered historic after renovations, then there's certain exemptions that can take place regarding building that first floor level within the floodplain. And that's really what we have to do. So that's the exemption we're asking. And Commissioner Barbadoro had requested that we meet with you guys. And if you all are in agreement with that, he is good with that as well. But I think they wanted a little bit more clarification on the letter that was written last time to that effect.
Right.
Okay, I understand, and I appreciate you all coming back here, and I think we can definitely look at what you have again, just to make that official and documented specifically toward the building code references, and be able to do that. While you're here, and we are kind of in this situation usually when projects are going for verification of preservation, and particularly when you're using tax credit financing, and as I believe you are, the primary review bodies are perhaps Mass Historical and certainly National Park Service when they review your plans. And we are kind of only brought in at this time, and we appreciate you bringing it before us and sharing the information with you as in this case, reviewing it for the flood issue and the building code issue. But since you are here, and as we are kind of verifying for our local governmental permitting agencies, a building commissioner, and perhaps planning board, we can do that on this level. And wondering if for the members present, we do have a new member that hasn't seen it yet. Wondering if you could maybe quickly go through the project. I believe you have noted that there are some changes in the design from last year, including removal of some certain appendages to the buildings, maybe removal of elevators and some other other types of
Yeah.
changes that, and maybe if you could address those quickly and maybe going through the drawings, show them. And also, we would be concerned about exterior materials that you are using for repair and additions, things like brick and roof and windows and doors. Again, just to maybe if you could briefly mention what those are, so we have a in their historic historic building context. And then we can we would be informed and be able to give our supportive opinion to the our commissioners.
Perfect. John, can you?
Definitely. Yeah, I can do that. And I have the drawings up right here. So let me see if I can share this.
Yeah.
Chair, it says the host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, let me see. Is FATV here still helping us with this?
Oh, they left.
Let me see if I can.
I think on your menu, Keith, down on the bottom, it should say turn over to another participant or something along
See,
those lines.
multiple panelists can share screen simultaneously. So why don't you try that?
That probably works.
Try it again, John.
I have it now.
Okay,
Oh, yes, I just got it.
if you could get off, Ellen,
Pardon?
well, let's see, John, are you showing, or Ellen, we don't want you to share your screen.
Oh, okay. So how do I get out of that? How do I eliminate myself?
Mm,
Can't, John, you just supersede if you just click on it or not? It's not.
Yeah, can you guys, well, what do you guys see on your screen right
Oh,
now?
there's a little box at the top that says that you were viewing someone.
I clicked it off.
And then
thank
it
you.
says view options to the right of that. If you do the down arrow, I think you can unclick yourself.
Stop
Oh, okay.
sharing. Okay, let
Okay,
me.
there
Okay,
it is,
all
yeah,
right.
perfect.
Fine, fine.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You guys can see it here?
Yes.
Great,
Can you
okay,
make it a little larger, John?
yeah.
There we go.
That's fine.
Does this work? So I'll
Mhm.
give especially for the people that weren't privy to the original presentation, I'll just give a high level overview of the project and then we can dive into some of the changes that we've made since then. But basically our challenge here is turning 3 existing 2-story mill buildings totaling around 80,000 square feet at 87, 89, and 91 River Street into apartments. It's this right here shows the 3 buildings, 1, 2, 3. It's bordered, the site is bordered by River Street to the south and then Knockage Street to the west. And then the Nashua River basically goes around the corner there. We are, in addition to, so really the entire scope here is staying within the existing footprints of these buildings, these 3 buildings, but we do propose a small 1-story addition, right? Let's see if I can highlight this a little bit.
Could you hold on a minute, John?
Yes.
I've got some garbage on my screen here that I'm going to, can't see your presentation because I was fiddling around and failing at the process.
Keith, at the very top of your screen, do you see a green box that says you're viewing something? Or view options?
View options.
And if you click on that little down arrow, I think you might see John's name, John's Cavaney. No?
I have brought up a screen that.
Oh, yeah, I have that one now too.
Just went back to the agenda view.
Yep, and I covered up John's.
let me see if I can push.
You
Yeah,
started.
I think you covered up mine.
Okay, start again.
Perfect. I think we got it.
One panelist can share it. Okay.
I think it's, are you seeing it now, Keith?
There you
Yes.
go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Great. Yes, so we have 87, 89, and 91 River Street, the three existing mill buildings. Largely, the entire program is staying within these three buildings, but we are proposing a small one-story addition at the northwest corner of the site that connects 87 and 89 River Street. And that's what I've highlighted right here in the purple. And that's basically going to be considered the main entrance to both buildings, 87 and 89, and it has some common elements within it. And then 91 to the south will have its own entrance as well. In terms of, I guess, other site elements, obviously, when you zoom out here, we have parking on the west side. We have parking in between the front two buildings, and then in between the back two buildings, we have what we're calling a residential courtyard. And that's still a little bit to be determined, but there's going to be a lot of landscaping there, and that's bordered by both the residential buildings on the north and south, and then that one-story addition on the west. In terms of, if we go to, let me go inside the building. So in terms of overall units, and this is one of the changes that we had before. Previously, we were proposing a bit of a mixed use component, heavy, mainly residential apartments, market rate apartments, but there was going to be a certain level, a small component of retail and potentially restaurants. Right now, where we're at, based on market feedback, is all residential apartments. So the total unit mix includes 6 studios, 44 one bedrooms, and then 15 two bedrooms. So that's on 2 stories across 3 buildings. And then obviously we just have a lot of different common elements here. Indoor bike storage, a package room, a gym area, a lot of things like that. So I think that gives a pretty good overview of the overall project, but in terms of changes from previously, like I said, there's the removal of the mixed use program and reallocation of the residential program.
And that also helped us with the parking requirements, because we were really tight on space to be able to meet the requirements for the 1 and 2 bedroom. And taking the mixed use out and changing to some studios from the 2 bedrooms has enabled us to fall within the proper window for parking on site.
Exactly. Previously in the first iteration too, what we had been proposing, there used to be across both buildings, there used to be these elevated walkways. If you guys can see, here's the west facade of the 3 buildings, but say like an elevated walkway here, and then another one connecting the rear 2 buildings. That was something in the initial proposal that we thought would be very cool, but due to budget constraints, we had to eliminate those. And I think in terms of, especially because we're keeping it all residential now, they weren't as needed as they were before. So that's one of the changes. Exterior ramps were added for accessibility purposes. So right now, and I think that just wasn't fully thought through when we had presented last time, but right now each building has at minimum 2 accessible entrances and exits. There's a full the transmittal that we had sent previously includes all the changes. A lot of them are replicates because it goes sheet by sheet what changed there. But just then other interior items, like we eliminated the common laundry elements where we're now proposing them within each unit. We eliminated the elevator because it's not required by code. So there's a couple of items like that, but I don't think they're as applicable to the conversations today. In terms of materials, we've been working with Doug Kelleher and his team at Epsilon to really sort through what would be fitting for this building, but then also fitting for the National Park Service and Mass Historic. So there was previously there was a slate roof on, as you can imagine, these are gable roofs. So there was a slate roof. So we're coming back with a synthetic slate material and a very similar to color to what was there previously. The brick facades are being restored wherever we can. We plan to work with an envelope consultant to really determine the extent of the masonry repairs required and the specifications for moving forward on that. Aluminum windows we're proposing, and we've been working really on getting the sight lines correct to what they were before. Not really proposing a whole lot of new materials. You can in the I'm trying to pull up. Here's an elevation of that one-story addition that connects, and that's right here. Let me see if I can.
And that's actually on the footprint where the old boiler and the smokestack
Exactly.
was.
Exactly. So we were using the existing footprint there, and we came back with this a little bit. Our goal with this facade was making it complementary to the buildings that are there right now, but not making it seem so historic that people think it was from that time. We wanted it to stand out and not be confused as historic, but be complementary to what's there.
And then this application was approved by NPS and MHC, with the addition.
Yep.
Obviously, making sure that the simulated slate will be there, the windows and so forth. So.
Exactly.
Is that addition connecting the last two buildings?
Yes.
As you look from River Street?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you can see right here, that purple area, that's the addition. So that serves as the main entrance for those the back two buildings.
Okay.
Okay, that is also the mail room and package room and a little workout area or something. So it's a common for all three buildings. And
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
We have a small cafe area as well. So really trying to make this amenities here that the residents will really enjoy.
Okay, so they have at that, what you call a cafe area in the third building there is access to the outside common space then there.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the intent is that this back wall of this addition facing out into the courtyard area is there's a lot of glass there. And really it becomes this nice we believe this nice intersection between the inside there and that outside area, both common areas for the residents.
Okay. And I see there's an outside door on building number 2 down in the bottom that goes out there too.
Right.
This isn't in our purview, but would you need handicap access or ramps at those 2 spots, or so that someone in a wheelchair could get out there?
So we do provide handicap access in the middle of the courtyard.
Oh, yeah.
But that could be something we look at. It's a good comment.
Yeah, again, not in our purview.
Yeah, but it's a good comment there.
Okay. Any comments from members of the commission or questions?
So, yeah, well, let me just say, this is Don Ostrowski, welcome. As I mentioned before, I am thrilled that you are doing something with this eyesore. And it is fully supportive of the project. As a member of the commission and fully supportive, as a resident of Fitchburg, I was a little concerned when you said you were going to close off that way between the second and third buildings, because that could, I've seen that with other mill turned into apartment type projects. And it's nice to say, well, it's a residential courtyard. In some cases, it becomes a dead zone. Not that this would, but where people just don't frequent it because there's no real passageway. I guess they could enter that one-story addition from the back. But I like the cafe idea very much, especially if you're going to get rid of the mixed use, the restaurants, because I'm thinking, where are the residents going to go if they want to get a quick bite to eat? I mean, they could go to Dunkin' Donuts, Dairy Queen when it's open, but there's not really a place to in the area to get a quick bite to eat, and a cafe would be great for the residents there, because it is a bit isolated from access to eating places as it were. The other question I had, and this was raised before, was any progress in regard to Kelly Wood Products? Are they going to?
That's a good question. It was on the top of our list here. We've had actually Greg Moran maybe could jump in, but Greg, one of our partners that used to manage all the real estate for Aubuchon Hardware, his family, has been having some discussions with Mike Kelly, and they're planning on a luncheon sometime soon to discuss our interest in their property. We did have an offer on the table about a year and a half ago, and the partners, one of the Kelly brothers was looking to retire, and I think he did, and we thought that they were interested maybe in moving on from their business, but one of the brothers, I think John, wants to continue with it for now, but we're interested in seeing if we can put a deal together with them to purchase the property and really not disrupt them for probably 2 years. Between now and when we are looking at opening up our new facility. At that point, that addition of that property would really be a great piece, because we could landscape to the river. We would be able to probably add a few more apartments and amenities on that property, and it would really be a nice package altogether. There is, I think, as everybody knows, there's a footbridge behind the Kelly property that crosses over to the Yarnworks, and we did have discussions with the mayor a little bit about let's see if we could bring that, either renovate that bridge or put a new bridge in. So there's a lot of possibilities. We're very interested in the Kelly property. We had an agreed upon price. Where we were hung up is on the environmental side, because they were assuming we'd take the risk of the environmental cleanup, and we said no. That's going to be your responsibility. So I think Greg is going to have some meetings with them in the next couple of weeks, and we feel eventually that property will become part of the site here and be a really nice addition for the project. But it's an ongoing discussion. It's not happening quickly, I don't think, with the Kelly brothers at this point. Greg, you don't have any more to add, do you?
Oh, I always love to throw in a little bone, but hey, 45 years handling real estate at Aubuchon's, 15 as the president, of a $50 million corporation, the Aubuchon Realty Company, developing real estate all over New England, living in Fitchburg for 60 years until recently moving to Westminster 5 years ago. I've definitely got the pulse on Fitchburg, and I hear what is being said about, the cafe amenities, area, that El Toro Steakhouse just opened up down the street, and I love going to the 50/50 diner, and, Mariano's Pizza and Italian Express is down the street in the other apartment complex. And then there's that funny little Spanish market that I've been to once or twice, Savarios. But yeah, the Kelly project, everybody has an abutter. That's the way I've looked at real estate my whole life. And relationships between abutters are important. And I think there is a financial relationship that's makes a lot of sense between ourselves and Kelly. And I think that's going to mature into, reality. So, yeah, I'm going to be having lunch with Mike Kelly just after the first of the year. And I agree with everything that Rich has said. It's a process and it's happening, which is great.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, because, my thoughts exactly, the landscaping down to the Nashua River, the footbridge over to the ironworks, all of that. Yeah, the vision for the future is very bright for that area. And let's hope it goes through like that.
It all makes common sense. So,
Yeah, we think, it's like dominoes. We get our project done and then the rest will follow, and it'll go from the west to the east here for the city. And we're very excited about it.
Great.
You're muted. Keith can't hear you.
All right, thank you. Just to follow up on Don's comment and question, the cafe is not a retail space. It's just for residents to bring their own food to or prepare it in a little micro
Right.
kitchen.
We originally had a restaurant planned, but with what happened in COVID and retail and restaurant, we had to reevaluate the project here. And from our perspective, regarding parking and the project, that best would be to go with full apartment layout with a cafe and a microwave and maybe some vending machines or so for the residents here, but not for the general public.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, the thought is that this becomes a place that people that live here can congregate, they can work during the day, study during the day. It becomes this communal area. And I completely get the point too about not wanting this residential courtyard to become kind of like a dark area that no one uses or a forgotten area. And I think how we're trying to mitigate that is providing multiple access points into this residential courtyard. We have 5 at different points along the building. So it becomes this area where people will actually, I believe, go in and out to their cars through this residential courtyard. It will become a very active space in that regard. And then also on this east wall of that addition, like I said, being an all glass curtain wall right there really starts to make this connection between the common spaces at the entry, the common space at the cafe, and this courtyard. So the whole goal with that is activating that space as much as we can.
Okay. Other comments from commissioners?
Can you guys hear me? This is Charles.
Yes, Charles.
I just had a question about the slate roof. Is it not viable to repair an original slate roof that's lasted over 100 years? Is it just not feasible in today's day and age? What's the reasoning behind completely replacing it? Although I appreciate what you're replacing it with, it's better than asphalt shingles. So it's just a curiosity on my end.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Charles, what we were looking at is most of it is in disrepair and not really able to be repaired. It needs to probably be fully replaced here. If we could salvage it, we certainly would. I think we won't know exactly until we start to drill down on the bones of it. But we are certainly aware of the the benefit and the look to the slate and obviously the historical team as well as yourselves want to maintain that look here. So if we could save some of the existing slate, we will. It's just a question of being able to see what we can and then blend in a simulated slate, because the simulated is going to be more durable at the end of the day and a little bit less costly than going with original slate on the entire roof.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I believe there's certain even like manufacturers. We've reviewed different manufacturers, different vendors to find the correct slate that both MHS and National Park Service are in agreement with, really digging into the exact color of this, the texture, things like that. So it doesn't look like a synthetic slate, I guess, synthetic material as much as possible.
Yeah, it's very expensive. It's probably between the windows and the slate, they're significant dollar value for those two things. And we've been working very diligently in the last year or so to try to value engineer to see where, we can try to control costs. We did an analysis initially in our budget that we came up with during COVID from our contractor Bowden was about 40% higher than what we originally figured. So we had to really get the pencil sharpened and try to figure out, how we can make the economics of this build out work. And that's one of the big issues. We don't have extra funding to raise the floors here and everything that goes along with raising the floor. So that's really the main reason we wanted to meet with your team today, Keith, and see if we can begin the process without having to worry about raising the floors, which we know eventually are going to be out of the flood zone. It's just a long process with the USGS and FEMA to get that activated.
Okay. And I think just to add to that, Rich, too, specifically with raising the floor, it's the monetary aspect like you speak about, but it's also at certain areas, this would put the floor level above the bottom of the windows.
Above the windows.
That starts.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's the point of this Chapter 12 exemption that we're looking for, that it's not going to alter the historic fabric of the building.
Maybe going back to Charles's comment on the slate, it is, or have you, or could you consider saving, maybe salvaging from maybe the north sides of the building to repair the south sides of the roof? They're more visible from the public ways, or at least on one of the buildings, say like the River Street side building, repairing the slate, or using salvage slate from the other buildings to do just the north sides or south sides instead of the north sides, or some alternates like that. And I'm not sure exactly how that might be of equal cost and able to save some of the visual fabric for the community and the residents also, and the value of your building. So just a thought, and not as a requirement from our end, but maybe as a something
Consideration.
Consider. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly going to do that, but rest assured that the simulated, you won't be able to tell the difference between the simulated and the real slate. There's a couple of key manufacturers of it, and it's very, very impressive. You couldn't tell the difference. But
yeah,
from our perspective, certainly whatever we can salvage from the original slate, we are absolutely going to do that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we come from. We're preserving what we got, and if possible. So just considering those would be great, as you mentioned. So Charles, any other comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Others on the commission?
Yeah, Keith, I have one other. I was just thinking about the flood zone, and those buildings are pretty high up already from the Nashua River. I wonder what is the historic record of the Nashua River flooding up that high?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have, I don't see, we were able to dig up any record of a flood ever hitting that property. Aldo, you might know better than anybody. I don't think the property's ever flooded, even though it's currently in the 100-year floodplain map.
Yeah, that's the information we've always had, is that the river, 50, 60, 80 years ago, had a number of dams that drove wheels and generated power for
Yes.
mills.
That's true.
And so the river was probably 8 or 10 times wider than it is today, and in those days, and it was higher on the banks. I've seen some very old historic pictures, I think on your website, that take a southerly view, taking a southern view. You can see the river between the old yarn works and our building. You can see that it's much wider. So in those days, I think it was all the dams between like western Fitchburg and all the way through Leominster, right into downtown Leominster, used to have a lot of dams on the river. And I think they had the same problem down in Jim Whitney had the same problem developing his thing downtown there off of Adams Street behind Leominster. It's a very low area, and it was in the floodplain, and I think he received an exemption based on the same idea that it was really the 15 or so mills that were on the river that made it made it originally a flood zone. But I think you're exactly right. I don't see how the river could possibly get that high. I mean, you're talking about a 20-foot flood.
Fun fact, I'm actually in that Jim Whitney building right now as we speak.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, my office, the river is right behind the office I'm in right now.
right. You don't know what the elevation is there, do you?
The river is like literally like, I don't know. I feel like maybe we're 5 or 6 feet above the water.
Yeah.
But the river touches the building.
Wow.
The river basically just touches the foundation of the building. So we have a photography studio here, and we actually take pictures with the brick mill building and the river behind it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty. Jim Whitney did a wonderful job here.
Yes.
He did. He took us through there. We had the tour probably a year or so ago. A really, really good guy too. Very,
Yeah.
very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say it's a very low probability that the river will now ever flood that high. I won't say impossible, but nearly. It would have to be a huge mega flood for that to happen.
Right.
Don, the building permitting process in Massachusetts and probably all the states to get building permits, most often you have to refer to the FEMA maps that have been generated. I don't know if the Corps of Engineers generated these over the years, and they're in the process of updating these as our guests have kind of pointed out. And it's the update, the versions are out for kind of review, but they're not going to be enacted for another full year at least.
Well,
Or
13
they
months.
become legal, and our guests are hoping to get their building permit before that, and feeling fairly sure that their investment is going to be safe from flooding from the information that they have. I guess like Whitney Mill was too, project is too. So
I think they're justified in feeling safe.
yeah. Other questions from the commission?
No, it's been very informative.
Andy?
Yeah, I've got a question. Just wanted to say, I appreciate the work you're doing here, trying to reuse these beautiful mill buildings. And just wondering if you had a rendered drawing of what the view might look like from River Street, what the buildings look like from that view. That's gonna be the main public view as you drive by. And I think just as you drive by today, it's just a chain link fence and some overgrown weeds and grass.
Overgrown weeds, right?
Right, yeah.
That's
I don't know if you
our-
have a drawing like that to see.
We do have some rendered drawings. It may take me a little bit to find. I don't have those up right now, but I can try while we're talking finding those.
Maybe before you do that, John, I had one question while we're on these drawings, and then maybe you could search your rendering pieces. Just before you close this, I was looking at the addition between 2 and 3, and some of the detailing, maybe on drawing A5, which is your last drawing, I think, or next to last drawing. A501.
Yes.
Don, can you put the light on? Thanks. That's it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
This is showing doors and potentially windows also, I believe.
Yes.
And the upper part of the drawing, right in the middle where there's lots of glass around a glass door.
Yes.
This is the entry to your new addition, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this would be if we go right here. Right in the center of the new addition.
Okay.
That was,
And the windows labeled N on either side of it, then these are large panes of glass. This is in the addition and you're differentiating it from the rest of the building.
exactly.
I see you have arch segments over those 5 openings there. And it appears that the material, it looks like brick finish texture on existing stack pattern to be determined.
Yep.
Could you explain what that material is and how you're treating at the top of the windows?
Yeah, so it's the idea is that the brick finish matches kind of as best as possible the brick finish and texture of the existing buildings elsewhere. I think the thought was potentially we could propose an alternative stack pattern or something of that sort to give it a little bit of differentiation from the existing buildings, but to maintain it. In terms of how this finishes off at the top of the windows, we haven't gone quite into that amount of detail with the header yet. I don't see that there, but I think that's something we could look at in terms of like exactly what that looks like there. But yeah, I think the idea with the glass, both the windows and the doors, is larger panes of glass, give a little bit of a contemporary feel, but still of the same size and proportions as the existing.
Yeah, I'm personally concerned about maybe the longevity or the durability of the look of it looks like a glued on thin slice brick from your on the details.
Yeah.
And how that's going to weather compared to the 150-year-old brick that's on the rest of the building or whatever the age of it is, and the mortar joints, and having those arch segments on top where all the other existing arch segments are actual structural arches, and they have arched brick, and rather than just the brick kind of being cut off with a rounded saw or something like that, to kind of, not giving a kind of a true one. Could it be real brick that you're using that perhaps a different tone, perhaps stack bond or whatever it is, for kind of the durability of the rest of the building, because this is going to be around for a long time. And I'm just concerned of the it's kind of a in some ways a fake brick, if you will, that's not going to maybe weather the same as other, is it maybe using a new material or some other, or using real masonry, and even using, flat tops on them like you're using in the other, the backside storefront type of things. It looks like you have a little clear story of glass running along the top also. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. That's here, I'll delete this.
Maybe
So,
maybe foot high or something like that.
yeah, it might be a little bit less than a foot, but the idea was to get a little bit of a spacing between the main form, the brick form, and the roof there, because we're going basically with like a flat roof. So it's, what we're proposing is these, it's really just like a storefront light shelf, we're calling it. But it gives a little bit of transparency and separation between the brick facade itself and the,
Yeah, and on the right-hand side of that little addition, there's a full piece of glass that kind of connects between the existing old building and the new addition.
exactly. So that same element would basically come down from the roof down the right-hand side.
I'm just wondering, as you're kind of treating that, if maybe treating the rest of this glazing that faces out toward the parking and the entry, it could be, a different vocabulary, but again, complementary. This is different. This is the addition. I'm just concerned personally, again, this is just my opinion. That it's the material should maybe be thought out a little bit more. I don't have any problem with the glass separation at the top and on the sides. Maybe the windows and the door, particularly the arches with this synthetic brick, which I call it, maybe it is real brick, but the very thin slices of it.
Yeah.
And do you really have mortar in there, or is it some synthetic mortar joint caulking or something that goes between them that's going to look different than the mortar joints on the existing building? So maybe divergent from rather than trying to copy it with a thin
I
brick,
agree.
a different material.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think we don't want this to be a replica, and it might have to be more than what we're proposing here, with just a different stack pattern. It might be, like you said, a little bit, push that boundary a little bit more. And I think that's certainly something we could look at.
Okay. I think
Keith, can I make a comment? I think your observations are spot on. My only thought to throw out would be, do you want to back off even a little bit more, and step away from the brick and find a finish that sets it apart, just as John had said earlier, that sets it apart, because we're not trying to copy, it's really something new. So whatever new material we can find, whether it's, I don't want to say a texture or a faux or something, but something that isn't copying brick, that you'll never get right. But anyway, that's my only comment.
Okay, so just maybe give some a little bit more consideration on that.
Yep.
I think in the drawings also, in some of the section views of the window detailing, they're being called wood windows, and I think they're probably metal clad windows. It would be a better term for it. Or I think
Should be aluminum. Yeah.
They are aluminum on a wood, so metal clad wood windows or something like that, or aluminum clad.
Yeah.
And I guess the color of that, probably National Park Service is going to be working with you on that. And these are existing multi-light with multi-pane windows in the existing double hung sash that are there, and whatever, I think there might even be some header lights over it, et cetera, in the existing windows. What type of, you're using insulating glass? Will you have Muntin bars in there? Are they between the glass? Are they what we call simulated exterior and interior?
I believe they are. Yes, I believe they are simulated. I have to, the older package that we have has the remaining drawings in it, but I believe they are. I believe that is what we're proposing, the simulated.
Is Doug on? Doug Kelleher?
I am.
Hey, Doug. I just backing up for a second. When we're talking the addition, and Greg had an idea about maybe not using brick, are we locked into using brick for that addition, from the historic applications?
I think what the Mass Historic
excuse me, National Park Service liked about the brick was, its contextual nature, even though it's a little bit contemporary version of what exists out there currently.
Yeah.
That being said, if there is another material that we think might be a better fit or a more appropriate fit to further, distinguish this as a new addition to the site, then we can certainly explore that further with both MHC and the National Park Service.
Okay, because I think it's a good point that Keith and Greg brought up, and maybe trying to, somewhat match the existing brick is going to be difficult.
Right.
Maybe we don't want to use brick if we don't have to, and have something that might be a better option.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes, Chair. I believe we are using simulated. I'll confirm that. If that's otherwise, I'll certainly email you, but I think that's what we're planning. And obviously it's to the National Park standard. So
Yeah, and
Yeah.
John, this is Doug again. I'm just looking quickly at the tax rate applications, and yeah, we do say that the proposed will be simulated by
Yeah.
flight.
great.
okay. So it will have a physical grid pattern matching the existing on the exterior of the windows. If they're between the glass, it really loses a lot of the feeling of the divided existing windows. And actually, National Park Service likes us to look at repairing the existing windows and using storms, et cetera. And you've probably investigated that. And if they accept the replacements, just a comment that we would, as a commission, or at least me personally, would like to see it as simulated. So,
Yep. Okay.
and obviously the color, would be, you could do a search, I suppose, on paint colors that are on the multiple layers of the building. And I think one thing maybe we mentioned last year was somewhere having a brief history, kind of in a permanent location, maybe your lobby or something of the this originally being Haywood Manufacturing, and then the buildings being sold to Ivor Johnson kind of later on in the late 19th century, and kind of the history of a little bit of both of those manufacturers for the residents to kind of and guests to kind of understand the significance of this building. It's just kind of an educational piece. Again, this just would be nice to have that as some commemorative types of pieces of, what the building was, and what at least this portion, the portions that you're working on here, what's the history behind these. I think part of our commission's charter is that we are, saving and helping to have the citizens of Fitchburg understand their heritage and appreciate the heritage of those that came before. Something like that would be, I think you had mentioned you were hoping to do that also.
Yeah, definitely, and potentially get some old bicycles if we can. There is some of those around. And
the collector's items now too.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I've got to interrupt. You just gave away my Christmas present, Keith.
Thank you, Greg.
I've already plagiarized the page out of the history of Fitchburg, and I've already framed it for my three partners for a Christmas present.
Oh, Greg, may I just say something? I've lived here for 87 years, and I am so excited about this project. And I lived near the Johnson House on South Street, which, by the way, is for sale. But there is such an interesting story, and it's from the City and the River. And I was just reading it myself the other night. I tried to read the City and the River and Around the World in Fitchburg every couple of years. And the story is wonderful. So thank you. your partners are getting a wonderful gift, and thank you for the idea.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, well, Keith blew it.
The
love
Grinch, here we go. Okay, any other comments from the commission members?
John, I think you just were trying to come up with a front view. I don't know if we have it for, I think it was Don or one of the.
Yeah.
And Andy,
I don't know if I have a good front view, but so I would just, before I show these, I would just keep in mind that these are, here, I'm trying to, these are old renderings. These were when we first started the project. We haven't really updated new renderings since then, but, trying to, so this one would be looking, can you guys see this okay?
Yes.
This would be looking at this main entrance that we're talking about, that one-story building.
We're looking at a top-down shot right now, John.
John, we're still looking at the floor plans.
Yeah,
Oh, you're still
looking at the floor plan.
Here.
Let me see, new share. Screen two.
Ah, okay.
There
Can
you
you
go.
guys see this?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so this is a much older rendering, so a lot of things have changed, but you can see, hey, we have the existing buildings here, and then this was the original concept for the one-story building. You can see that glass light shelf that we have between the top of the brick and the roof. What's not here, and what we, I guess, tried to make addition or alterations to, we gave more presence to the entrance. As you can, I'll try to pull this up before so you can see this, how this looked previously, but you
Okay,
can see in here that these glass windows and don't actually go to the ground. We have a much bigger, more, I guess, more monumental entry, so it signifies where the entry is better in this one. And then we also have that front reveal, that glass reveal on the right-hand side of the building. When you go back here, you can see how it looked previously, but and I think also too, just the point that the chair brought up regarding, at the very least, what we were trying to do with this updated proposal past this rendering was altering the brick pattern in a way that signifies a little bit of a difference, but I think that's, based on the comments we got here today, something we can investigate further to try to further differentiate it a bit. But that's one. Here's another one, and then this shows that interior courtyard we were talking about. The one thing we just don't want to keep in mind here is these bridges, these sky bridges that were previously proposed, and as you can see, I'm sure you can imagine how expensive they got, but again, this is just conceptual. I think how we imagine this in the future is more landscaping, a little bit less hardscaping, but really trying to activate the space. And you can see that glass wall we have on the backside of that common space to really open up the two areas there. And then the final rendering is, this is one looking at the entrance to 91 River Street. I wouldn't necessarily look at the colors of the window trim and things like that, because those were things that we haven't really focused on. Just here, it's just that entry, but because we're giving so much focus to the new one-story addition, separating 87 and 89, connecting 87 and 89 River Street, that entrance we just looked at, we wanted to focus on a nice entry for the front building, 91. So this is what it would look like from the parking lot as well. But I just want to keep in mind, renderings aren't perfect, and these were just conceptual at the time, but they give you a little bit of an idea where the end product is headed in.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
So one final question, the on the east side, there are some buildings there between the mill and the field.
yes.
Are those going to remain there?
Yeah, the one is Boardman, Jim Boardman, Bomanco. It's an auto parts operation. It's the white building just to the east of ours.
The mansard roof, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
We did have some initial discussions with him, but he, we were nowhere near on the same page as far as, potential buyout of that property. And I think his plan is to eventually to move out of there, but nothing, within the short term on those other properties, because you have Boardman's property, and then next one east, I believe, is the field. And then Dunkin' Donuts, I think, is the way it.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
go ahead, Ellen.
The field is an extension of Crocker Field. It's used for practices. So I believe it's owned by the city.
I think
Yeah, and I was, probably the railroad tracks, the abandoned railroad tracks don't belong to you, but belong to the Romaco.
Oh, to Boardman, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice to save those railroad tracks actually for historic purposes.
Yeah.
is that a right of way? Is that a right of way for both properties?
You mean the drive between Bomanco and our, yes. Yeah, and then beyond that, you get to Kelly's, and then I think there's a couple of other smaller operations. I think the motorcycle group is renting one of them. Aldo, who's down the other side? When you go down.
There's some auto repair shops at the end of the right of way. The right of way goes all the way back to Kelly's building, and it serves Kelly. It serves the auto parts, and then there's a kind of an unused building to the right that I believe is used in the summertime by the Hells Angels, who have barbecues there every now and then. But other than that, I don't think anyone really uses that building. But that's all right behind the Boardman property. Boardman property is the one on the street
With that mansard roof. Yeah.
which is a great building. I mean, that would make a fantastic restaurant, I think, something like that, which maybe someday will happen, but right now, nothing with us going on with any of the neighbors except for Kelly, which I agree with the earlier comments, it's kind of like we're made for each other, these two properties. And we've had discussions with Kelly going back to before we even bought the building back in 2018. And we've been neighbors. My family's been in there back in the 1970s and the 90s, and the Kellys were there then in the 70s. So we know them pretty well, and we've had very cordial discussions. They've kind of agreed with everything we say about the properties being so much better together, and the amenity value of the property goes way up, I think, if we connect them. So we're on the same page. It's just a matter of working on a deal.
Very good. The right of way between the building to the east, who's the primary owner of that? The one that Don mentioned, that the railroad tracks are still visible. Are you?
Well, the property line goes right down the middle of it.
Okay.
So there's, I think, by definition, it's just a permission granted, but specifically, I don't know who owns the tracks. The tracks are embedded in the right of way. They're under there. They've been tarred over a few times, I think.
Yeah. They used to go over toward what was the co-op main building, where a spur off of the tracks that they could use the train to load
Yes.
stuff there. So it was an
It crossed
interesting
over.
remnant, and, just to kind of keep it in mind as you're moving forward on this. One last comment, and we tend to look at these preservation projects kind of following National Park Service preservation briefs for a lot of the information. They do have a preservation brief. I can't remember the number now, number 14 or something, I think it is, on additions to historic buildings. I took a look at it the other day. It's somewhat ambiguous, and there's lots of examples of good and bad that can be subjective. But it might help if you haven't looked at it to take a look at that as far as materials. And also a preservation brief on masonry repointing and restoration. We using the proper materials and the proper tools for raking and repointing joints is very important, that you don't damage the existing brick and window trim, things like that. And those actually brackets below your windowsills that I think are cast iron, which is kind of unique for construction. And using the proper kind of mortar that matches the lime content. And because it was 19th century construction, the mortar is much weaker than our current mortar types that we use. So just being careful in your specifications that using the wrong mortar mix for repointing can actually damage the brick and in a pretty short period of time, because the bricks do not move like the rest of the bricks around them if they have the wrong, too strong a mortar mix in it. So if you can be careful on your specifications to that.
100%, definitely.
And it takes a knowledgeable mason that's used to doing this, doing a proper job on it. So
I think that's exactly, and that's at least the masons we've been talking to, it's all really a requirement is that they're like you said, they specialize in this. They work on adaptive reuse projects all the time.
and you can kind of have them submit their mortar mixes and things for your approval. So that'd be great.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments? I guess I'd like to maybe propose a motion that we provide a letter to the building commissioner and a copy to the planning board, and probably Mike O'Hara, who is the city administrator with the planning board, approving maintaining the historic intent of these buildings and such words in this renovation, that they will remain as historic buildings, in that they have ongoing phase 1 and 2, I believe, approval from the National Park Service, and that with some kind of minor following it as you continue your design development, that you document the things that we kind of talked about in our meeting today, just to in your pursuit. And I'm sure that National Park Service will be looking for similar types of things also, or I presume that they would be. So
Can I say so moved, or do I have to repeat everything you just said?
no. I will kind of paraphrase that, and I'll send a draft letter out to the commissioners to approve before I send it off.
Thank you, Keith.
Fantastic.
The second?
I will second it. Have you already done that, Don?
Okay, all right.
I moved.
Yeah.
Okay, then you second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Abstentions? Nays? Okay, unanimous decision to approve to send a letter off verifying the intent of maintaining historic status.
Super.
We will, once we have come up with a final on that, we will copy you on that also.
Well, thank you very much, Keith, and
Thank
all the
you.
members of the team here. We really appreciate, number one, the time and working us into the schedule today, and the support from your side for the project. And we promise you're going to be very proud of this when we eventually get it completed here. We're very excited about it.
It's been a pleasure.
For us,
Looking forward to seeing it. Yeah.
we hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season. You stay healthy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Same to all of you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
everyone.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Take care now.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to get back to our agenda here, if I can. And is that showing on my screen to you?
No.
No,
I have to get the share screen. Hang on. Share screen. Share. How about now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So item number 5, update on Monument Park. This is specifically on Monument Park itself. Last meeting, we had a request for an update on what we're looking at for perhaps some preservation and of the Monument Park itself. Some things we've kind of worked on in the past or documented. One thing that kind of brought this up was that the mayor is definitely backing adding the park benches back to the park that were removed a few years ago. And I think I shared a copy of a photograph of some of the ornate iron type of benches that are in the upper common.
Mhm.
They happen to be manufactured by Boston Bench, which is or was a Boston-based company that created the castings, the ductile iron decorative pieces. I'm trying to get some additional information from that company. Their website's a little bit funny, so I hope to have that soon. And then sharing that information with the
Park Department.
Parks Department. And hopefully they could order those. And we should probably, I'm looking for your comments on this, as they put these back, should there be an application through our Monument Park Historic District for this change, if you will, if the benches are done as a separate item? Should that be done as the library is doing it for the library project? Should the Parks and Recreation do an application on this just to kind of formalize the process of approvals?
That would be, I think that would be a good idea, Keith, and it would bring it to everybody's attention that we're all looking at the same improvement project for Monument Park.
Other thoughts on that? So once I get the information, I will share the and those of you that saw the photograph, does it seem like an appropriate design to use those in the park itself also?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One thing, and I looked at it the other day, is there something in the middle of the bench so that it discourages people from laying down on the bench? At some point,
Yes.
something was added.
Ellen, yes, those benches have a wrought iron railing in the
Okay,
middle.
okay, I couldn't remember. Thank you,
Yeah, they're the
Charles.
same ones that they have in the upper common.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, but,
Okay,
okay, I just wanted to be sure.
right, Keith, correct?
That's correct. And when I spoke with one of the representatives from Boston Bench, he said usually that middle piece comes at a spot that is no more than 30 inches from the side hand, the side rail also. So the 30-inch space where you could get 2 lovers in there or one
A little
person.
child.
Yes. But it's difficult to lie down on, but comfortable for all, for sitting. So once I get more information on that, I'll copy everybody on that as we submit that forward. And I'm believing it. I took a quick walk in the snow around Monument Park the other day, and it looks like the 4 corners is where they were before. And I believe the paving has kind of a rectangular paving spot. I can't remember. I think it's brick.
It does. It has something.
Yeah, and each
Mhm.
would receive two benches, one on either of the outside edges that would be parallel with the fencing behind them.
Mhm.
So one kind of we'll call it a double bench with that in-between piece behind it, so you could have two people on one bench, and at right angles to them, there would be two people on another bench, and the same on the other three corners in the area. So that would be 8 benches in total, probably. And we could leave it up to DPW how they're anchored down and how they're installed, et cetera, or Parks Department. Okay.
Well, again, I wanted to reiterate what I've said before, but it bears repeating. As overseers of the park, I think we want it to be a park that people use and not have people discouraged from using it. And over the years, I've seen it become a park that people are discouraged from using.
That's true. That was deliberate, Dawn. There were some unsightly things that happened, and so they pulled out the benches, and that was going to solve the problem. But I've always felt badly. There are two, high rises for the elderly within walking distance, and that would be so nice for people who live there, who live on a postage stamp, to be able to enjoy the park.
Yeah.
But that was removed.
And the cutting down of the bushes, not taking care of the flowers that were planted by the garden club.
Pittsburgh Garden Club.
And prohibiting dogs. Why would they prohibit dogs? I mean, it's, well, I know why. Oh, well, you know what dogs do, but that also prohibits the people who have dogs. You know, you're not just prohibiting the dogs, you're prohibiting the people who are walking their dogs. And that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I think that the city is realizing that, and maybe in our conversations, kind of going forward, and as Main Street is being lots of projects making it better, and lots of streetscape things that happened, and the two-way traffic and things. Perhaps having waste receptacles for those particular things, and perhaps even the doggy bag supply, or at least signage, asking pet owners to pick up after their pets. So, and some of that stuff can be done very nicely with some permanent types of appropriate signage and collection devices, et cetera. So, good point, though, and I think certainly the mayor is fully supportive of getting the benches back in, and getting the activity back there. So, second, cast iron fencing repair and restoration. We have not done anything recently on this. There probably should be a new inventory. Charles and I believe a year and a half ago, did another quick look around, and we have some additional repair areas for balusters and the railing for the cast iron fencing around. So that needs to move forward. Include this in our talks with the Parks Department and DPW. We're talking about the benches and seeing how we can work on this together, and the city can be involved in the RFP for the contractors or however this can be done in getting these repairs to the iron fencing. So I will follow up and get some information back to you shortly on that also.
If I could just add one thing to that item. There was in fact a, not a farm that was, that portrayed the design of the cast iron features. And at one time it was in the senior center and I don't know what happened to it. So
Ellen,
there,
Ellen, I went to the senior center last week, 2 weeks ago,
yep,
uh,
yes,
and looked for them. The new director there, her name escapes me off the top of my head, super nice lady. Oh, I can't think of her name. And also
it's okay.
the person who's in charge of, I believe, maintenance there. I can't think of his name either off the top of my head.
Yeah, he's also the fellow for the library.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super awesome people. They gave me a tour of the basement of the senior center. I had no idea that gigantic space was there with a bocce court and other
Mhm.
things down there.
Mhm.
And we did an extensive search, and the maintenance person, whose name I can't think of, mentioned to me that he recalled the molds being there
Moles, right. I
maybe
couldn't think of the
10
word.
years ago or so, after they had done the restoration, maybe 20 years ago. He said they were down there for quite some time. They were near the boilers. He showed me where they were. They're gone now. He said the Department of Public Works removed them. He didn't remember how long ago it was, but he said maybe 8 or 10 years ago. But they did look, and they're not there. We looked with a flashlight. We looked everywhere.
Well, at one time I heard that it was in the, they were in the former West Fitchburg Fire Station building. But I don't know if anybody actually went up there to look.
Not, no, not there.
That's in private use now?
I don't know, Keith. I don't know who owns it now.
Well, we could stop by and ask sometimes.
Mhm.
Okay. So the kind of the same thing in our discussions with the Parks Department is as a kind of an application process on that also. So we're doing properly and can have it budgeted into perhaps the city's budget for the parks repair and upgrade. Next part of the Monument Park, Andy, in a recent look around, saw that on the main street, the main steps coming in off of the Main Street sidewalk coming in have moved a bit or sunken and are somewhat disheveled, maybe unsafe in some ways and maybe need some repair, resetting the granite steps at the Main Street entry. And what did you see there, Andy?
Yeah, just kind of what you're describing, Keith, where some of the big granite blocks are out of place and at angles, and like you said, the possibility of a hazard there for somebody walking up those steps.
Okay.
And probably, looks like it might be water damage, almost like water might have pooled up behind those steps and moved them out of place. I'm not sure. It would take some heavy equipment operation to move those back.
Yeah, and proper backfilling in it to stabilize it. Okay, definitely we'll add that into our discussion with parks. And as mentioned in earlier meetings that I believe the steps are part of the center monument base, which is granite also, that goes around the kind of the four sides of I think it's a rectangular base. I believe there's 3 or 4 steps that kind of go up to the main base of the monument, and several of those granite steps have been moved out by frost movement or settling also. So maybe These could be repaired also. I believe these are actually mortared in. And again, some repair, and because this is part of the monument, the statue monument, this may take a little bit or maybe different specifications than just the step entries coming into it. So it might be something that we might, I think we mentioned before that maybe we talk with the art museum to maybe have maybe the director there come down and take a look at the complete statue, including the base, and maybe get some comments on that as we
That's a
think
good
about
idea.
getting some repair work to the base and making sure that, one, it doesn't disturb the main construction of the monument itself. And are there any other repairs to the granite, the plaques, and the actual, what is it, 3 statues that are the main
Yes,
statue and the sailor and the soldier, one on either side. And the brass plaques or bronze plaques that are, I think it's bronze plaques that are part of it. So there's some good work that we should be reviving and getting this going back again. And thanks, Charles, for kind of helping to push this.
Yeah, and I had another thought. There was another name that escapes me, and I'm trying to find my notes and I can't remember people's names, but Ellen maybe knows the gentleman who was the president of the Lions Club, I believe it was. Can't think of his name off the top of my head. Anyway, the people at the senior center were saying that maybe he might have some information about the molds. Ellen, do you know who I might be referring to?
not currently, but I can find out. The president of Lions, I can find out that quite
I don't think
easily.
he's currently, I think he was.
No, I know.
But he was
and
for a
I-
long time.
I remember him, but I don't remember his name.
Anyway, they
was-
said that he could be somebody that might have some insight as to where the molds could be, but at this point, I think we need to move on and make new molds. So. We'll
All right,
see.
I'll follow up on that. Thanks, Charles.
Yep.
All right, any other comments on Monument Park? I hope to have some communication with the city departments, and we'll hopefully be able to report back soon on that. All right, update on historic building demolition delay.
Well, I sent out to commission members just before the meeting.
Yep.
A PowerPoint. I think Chris Skelly put that together some time ago. And it's very good in making the case for why a community should have a demolition delay bylaw or ordinance, but especially for Fitchburg. I mean, this is a historic city, and there's no demolition delay. I think as we've discussed before, part of the problem is that people are not aware of the history of Fitchburg. And so they they have an insouciant attitude toward the buildings and the structures that are of historic value. The idea is to put together as much as we can in terms of making the case. Those people who are dead set against the demolition delay, they're not going to be convinced by anything, but I'm sure there must be a lot of people out there who are kind of saying, well, we haven't had one for, ever. So why should we have one now? Well, because it's urgent. It's becoming more and more urgent every year as fires occur and buildings get torn down that are of historic value, but also just the notion that well, it's an old building, therefore we'll tear it down. But that's what gives Fitchburg the remaining charm it has.
It's
Are these
part of the
old
character.
buildings.
Dawn.
Yes, the unique character of Fitchburg.
Right.
And it's very sad to see people have this kind of apathetic attitude toward it.
Well, I've been thinking about the demolition delay ever since the fire happened at the former YMCA building on the corner of Fox and Main Street. And that's, it's, the building is on the H.M. Francis Historic District, or included rather. But there's been a fire. And if Megan was with us, she has talked to the owner. The owner, oh, I can't think of his name. He was on the city council for a while. Hughes, yeah, thank you. She's had a conversation with him, and unfortunately they don't have any insurance. And I think we need to be concerned about that. I don't know what we can do as a commission, but
well, this is one of the reasons for demolition delays, so that discussions can occur rather than a unilateral decision by someone that may be less than well informed about what to do.
Alan, I don't think the fire was extensive. I think most of the damage was done by the police, by the fire department, breaking windows and just trying to gain access.
oh my God.
I think most of the demolition going on is neglect,
Yeah, well, I know you're right next door.
Yeah, so, yeah, the issue is more just neglect at this point. I don't think the fire was extensive, but yeah, a lot of windows were broken and things like that.
Tom Hughes and his son are the ones who own it. Thank you for helping me remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also part of our Monument Park Local Historic District, so.
Sure.
In some ways, the building commissioner would have to refer it to the historical commission if there was a demolition delay, unless there was some emergency reason for it, I think. So something to be a little bit aware of. But it certainly, as it's possible, and as we've seen with Johnsonia, almost across the street, that it could be an issue in the future or the near future, perhaps. So, Don, I was able to take a quick look at that presentation that you had sent to us as a PDF.
Yes.
Is it possible that you could send Andy a URL link to that so he could include in the minutes for anybody that's reading the minutes or watching this program, that they could be able to find that link about demolition delay and we could include it in our minutes?
Yes, I will do that.
Okay. From our past meetings, we talked about maybe getting some input from other organizations, preservation organizations in the city on demolition delay, and our item number 7, which is on stone wall preservation. Of maybe presenting a couple members, maybe presenting these issues to the Historical Society, and
Yeah, absolutely.
just as some a point of public feedback, if you will, or at least to you, the presenters, of bringing that information back and seeing if we can get a little outside information. Is that still on, as far as we know?
Yes, we did make an appointment with Susan Navarre for Wednesday, January 18.
Wednesday, January 18th.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. I can find out. That'll be the Board of Directors meeting for the Historical Society, where we can present the 2 ordinances. My thought might be, we have like a couple of pages to review on each ordinance, just to describe what we're working on. I don't know if I don't know if
We have
PowerPoint,
drafts of the ordinances,
right, yeah.
but
We can
you know,
include
our experience with the city council in the past, when we presented the draft of the demolition delay ordinance,
Mhm.
was basically trying to isolate us, that this was, out kind of out of the blue kind of thing, why would you want to do that? And I think what we want to do is make people aware there are over 130 communities in Massachusetts that have demolition delay ordinances.
Yeah.
Including Leominster.
And Lunenburg. And it was kind of, well, why are you presenting this? And what about the other communities, the other than the 130 that have them? What about the ones that don't have them? Well, they're not historic communities.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this, I think we want to make that connection, that this is not a unique singularity of the historical commission. This is not just Massachusetts wide, this is nationwide. And the more we can make that connection, that Fitchburg, by not having a demolition delay, is way behind other similar communities, and by not having a stone wall ordinance is behind other communities in New England, where stone walls are such an important part of the character and history of their communities.
Hey, your presentation would be perhaps by you 2 individuals, just kind of seeking some feedback on what you're proposing on these 2 potentially city ordinances or educational pieces anyhow. And I would like to keep it as kind of a fact-finding piece with just 2 members of the commission kind of outreaching there, and not as a quorum of our board making this into or our commission is making this an official public meeting, if you will. So with that comment, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I mean, we could have a meeting and just specifically to discuss what, we can have the written material available to people, but how this is going to be presented, a little practice.
Okay, so maybe Ellen, if you were thinking of joining that, so we'd have 3 members, but not a quorum, so.
No, I'm not saying that I need to be there. I mean, that I need to be part of it. It's just that if we, have a meeting and talk about exactly we know why we're doing it, but to inform people so that we will gain their support.
Yes, and get feedback on it too, so.
And get feedback, yes.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Maybe moving to item 7, which is the update on appreciation, preservation of historic stone walls and structures. kind of the same piece, and I believe Andy and Don were going to be presenting it as kind of a dual presentation. And Don, you had recently sent commission members today that piece about from the Department of DCR, I believe, the state
Yeah,
organization.
Department of Conservation and Recreation. Their Historic Landscape Preservation Initiative, and I think it's a really good description. I mean, it's of the importance of being aware of the historic value of stone walls and structures. It doesn't make the case specifically for a stone wall ordinance, but it does make the case that we are, as they say, it's the forgotten features of the landscape, and not just forgotten, overlooked. So once, as members of the commission have remarked, ever since we've been talking about a possible stone wall ordinance, one starts seeing the stone walls all around in Fitchburg. They're things that we didn't see before, we now see, and appreciate their value, how much they contribute to the character of Fitchburg.
Yeah, I agree with you, Don, and also just doing some research or searching online about stone wall preservation in Massachusetts, and you do see some nearby towns. One, for example, is Sudbury. I know it's a little ways off, but you know they have a stone wall preservation ordinance. So I think we need to reference these communities that do have them.
That's right.
You know, that's gonna be a big part of our presentation.
Yes.
You know, what we're trying to do and reference these other communities. Then just by getting the word out, like you said, people, you drive by a stone wall, you're gonna look at it a little
That's
closer.
right.
Yeah.
Great. Don, if you could, is there a URL for that DCO?
There is, I'll send that to Andy too.
Okay, so we can have that in minutes
Mhm.
as a reference. Yeah, they appear to be really great documents and good information. Okay, update on historic district information brochure, map information guide, signage, web posting, and FSU faculty-led student project coordination ongoing for fall, spring 2021, 22, 22, 23. Just a quick update on the brochure and street signage. We're waiting kind of for some of the final graphics and final edit on those. Have contacted our graphic designer. She's just finishing finals from Fitchburg State this week. And she said she'd be getting in contact with me sometime this week and next week, perhaps. So hopefully I'll be able to do kind of a one-on-one sit-down session with her and being able to get these into a final format and maybe getting the kind of the final software document that in our possession so that we can kind of move forward in some of the production pieces on that.
And to follow up, Keith, I have a call into Mark Dohan about the Academy Street project. So I'll get back to you as soon as I talk to him.
Okay, terrific. Yeah,
I mean,
with the brochures highlighting historic areas pretty much along Fitchburg's Main Street. And which includes our local historic district, which is the Monument Park Local Historic District. It also includes Monument Park as a National Register Historic District with a little bit different boundaries. It includes the Crocker Field, which is National Register District.
H.M. Francis.
It includes, and Moran Square, which is National Register Historic District. The H.M. Francis is not a national, the architecture of H.M. Francis historic area is not a national register or local historic district, but a surveyed area where one of those buildings, which is Safety Fund Bank Building, which New View occupies along with apartments, is National Register. The rest of the H.M. Francis overlay area is a surveyed area that's well surveyed. So in the brochure, we may call it a historic area rather than a historic district. And the Upper Common, which is in the process of seeking National Register designation, they have the last draft of it, they're extending it down to include the library buildings and some of the commercial buildings across Main Street, including, I can't think of the names of them there, but leading up to where the YMCA building is. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, doesn't it start at Pritchard, Oliver and Maine? Is that the beginning, or do they
That's where, no, it doesn't start at Pritchard. It actually starts at Newton Place. It doesn't go all, the they're starting at Newton Place and goes up from there in the latest version. Again, this is not National Register yet, and it's maybe a couple years off before it gets its final designation. So we can call it in the brochure a
propose?
Proposed or surveyed area or proposed National Register. And the same with the Academy District that Ellen just mentioned. Academy Street Educational proposed National Register Historic District that includes stables, the Academy School Mansard Building, the current Junior Longzo Junior High School building, and the Wallace Stairs, or that's part of that also. One question is, Ellen and I were looking at these districts, particularly the Upper Common District, that includes the Philbin Post Office building, and to the just behind it, the little alleyway behind it, and the adjacent proposed Academy Street district that starts with B.F. Brown. Both of these proposed do not include the art museum, multiple building facility, and a question that I would like to propose, perhaps at least to Mass Historical, is that, maybe the art museum facility that includes the stable building that was designed by, or at least renovated by, H.M. Francis, the studio stone building that's attached to the north side of it that was done in the 50s or 60s, I believe.
I think it was the 60s.
And the two-story addition and the storefront buildings that are included down onto Academy Street. So that whole complex, certainly architecturally and historically, has a lot of history to it, that perhaps it should be included in one or the other of the academic district or the Upper Common District, and not be kind of left out as a loner and not included in either one. Yes.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. I think it really belongs with the educational district, because it clearly is an educational institution. So I was planning on mentioning it to Mark when I talk with him. That was on I made a list of things I wanted to talk with him about, but I included the art museum, the question of had they considered it, and see what he has to say.
Very
The the art museum is on the inventory for H.M. Francis, because he did do something there. I can't remember now what it was. But it's significant. And you know, it would be nice to have it highlighted in the educational district, especially where you know, the use of B.F. Brown is artist housing and workspace. And, you know, the art museum really is part of that plan. So
Well, And,
if-
and obviously have classes and ongoing education about humanities and art and so forth. So,
oh, absolutely. So, you know, I am including that on my conversation agenda for Mark.
okay, so as the brochure goes forward, we hopefully we can refine these proposed districts and their boundaries. And so we have a good, valuable document that can be distributed as a fold-out brochure that's available at City Hall, at the Art Museum, at the library, chamber office, etc. Along with digital copy that can be accessed from our website and hopefully highlighted in other city websites. So more to come on that. Hopefully it's starting to wrap up a little bit better. On to item number 9. We're running a little bit long here. Historic marker, new sign maker update. I have communication out to the New Jersey farm to try to clarify the payment pieces. I'm waiting for a response back on that and just kind of the ways we can get that going. So no new marker applications. So, but we hope to have this figured out here shortly.
Keith,
Yes.
where in New Jersey are they? I forget the sign makers. Do you remember the town?
I do not.
The only reason I mention it, and maybe I'll look in our notes or you can shoot me an email, is I'll be, if I'm from there, from New Jersey, and next time I'm down that way, visiting family, I could, you know, if it's in the area, New Jersey's not that big, so I could maybe stop by in person and just, you know, talk to them and just take a look around. I'm not saying I would definitely do it if they're down in South Jersey or something. That's a hike, but you know,
No.
if it's someplace kind of near my travels, I could always just stop by and say hello.
I will send you a link to their website.
Thanks.
All
I
right.
know you sent us links previously, but sorry about that.
All right, will do. Number 11, possible project to document and share Main Street building histories, historic districts, tax credit information.
I'm working on a set of plans. I had a working set, but it wasn't well done. So I'm working on a formal set of plans, and so that you can all see what we're talking about. I am waiting to find out what buildings the Upper Common is including, because I don't know what private buildings or public buildings they're including. I'm assuming the historical society, but I don't know what other ones there are.
Yeah, it basically includes everything almost from Newton Place up to School Street, along Main Street and back. But I can give you a draft copy of the map that's outlined, and that will help you, I think.
Oh, thank you.
It's a particularly on Main Street, it's continuous as buildings. From Newton Place, except for the brick building where the Trinitarian Church was, everything on Main Street, left and right, going all the way up, including the Unitarian Church, at the top of the common. I believe the church that's behind there.
Yeah,
And continuing out Main Street, both sides, it does include back behind the Boulder Cafe all the way to the river,
Yeah.
including the Swedish Congregational Church and the historic buildings that are back there, not the warehouse building off of Rollstone Street, but the older buildings back there. It does not include Crocker Field, but everything on the opposite side of the river it does. I believe down to what was the gas station, it's the empty couple lots as you
yes.
get.
But it includes the School Street School, right?
Yes, it does. It
'Cause
loops up.
that's an H.M. Francis.
And the storefronts from School Street back toward the Upper Common on the right-hand side.
Okay,
And the old church and the garage door building, company building, Boulder Gallery, and those, all the townhouses and things.
now, the building next to the Boulder Gallery, continuing on Main Street, that was once a church, I think.
Yes, and it has the
Yeah.
store, so you can still see the high structure behind it, gable-ended,
Mhm.
back a ways, so. It'd be
I'd like
interesting.
to walk through there again.
Yes.
I think that was built in 1833, I want to say.
Yeah, some old buildings. And it does include the old, where DeBona's Flowers are, that was the large structure behind it was the old meeting house. It was moved
Yes.
off the common and into its secular spot, if you will. I like to say in the mid 19th century, kind of a change, really pushed to separate church and state from the old meeting house type of government. It was both religious and town affairs. And that's probably close to when Fitchburg became a city. I think that was what, 70s or something. like
Yeah,
that.
well, and when the City Hall was being built, remember?
Yep,
Um,
52.
That, there was a lot of conversation about that at that time too. I think, I remember.
Yeah, just an aside, the college professor at Fitchburg State that is still working actually with Susan Navarre, and I sat in on their final, where they're doing these Clio digital comments on history. Their students this past semester were working on the arts in Fitchburg, the history of the arts in Fitchburg, and one of the students was working on the Athenaeum Society, which was, I believe, a group that operated out of, I think, met in the new, at that time, City Hall, and the list of speakers that they had come to Fitchburg that include Ralph Waldo Emerson, and several others. And this was all pretty much during the 1850s, just after City Hall was constructed. And they started basically the first library where they had over 100 or so books that could be shared with the public, if you will, checked them out. And I think this was in City Hall also.
It was.
And probably the second floor area in its first reiteration was this big meeting space where these orators would come into the city and talk about their great things. And the students have listed it, and it should be on the Clio site now, be able to find that. And so they did some nice research on that, kind of showing.
That is so exciting. That the Athenaeum in Salem was, very, very important. And I used to think, I don't wonder if we ever did anything like that. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
And knowing that all of these important people spoke in City Hall, that it was really significant.
Yes, And thanks to the Historical Society for helping to have these.
I'm
give us
delighted to hear about it.
search for these students. And if you look on the Clio, you should be able to find them. I think they're posted now and they might be up and running now. So
What is the Doc Clio?
THECLIO.com or .org.
THEC.
So the Clio, one word,
Oh.
THECLIO.
Oh, IO. Okay. All right. .com. Okay. I'll do that. Thank you.
.org. Just put in the Clio and it'll come up with it.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
And for those observing this, it's a great resource for anyone to start looking at postings of its heritage and lots of other things. So lots of organizations have posted on it, and they're all well researched and have good documentation, or they show their documentation, which is a good piece, and they can be updated if there's new research found on these things. So it's been a great learning experience for the students and appreciation for. Another one was the Bijou Theater.
Mhm.
And
I remember that. I never went to it, but it was on the second floor of the Pritchard Plaza
Yep.
building.
And kind of talked about it, and the people that found it were actually organ makers, and actually made pipe organs, I guess, also, and behind the music and kind of the long history of that. So some good things. Sorry for going on and on here. Any other new business?
My stepchildren, the Stones, are still at the FR, at Putnam Place. And I'd really love to have people thinking about how we can make sure that they're saved somehow.
Right. I'm sorry, I skipped over that. Was item number 9.
That's okay. That's okay.
True. And then any thoughts on this? I have gotten a call
Keith,
in.
I just thought maybe Ellen should just because somebody watching this might not know what she's referring to. I just thought maybe Ellen should just give a brief just description. I mean, the way that you explained it, somebody might not understand what you're referring to.
The Wallace Building stones were the front of what everybody knew as the Sentinel Building, but in fact, it was the Wallace Building. And when the building was, I won't get into all the details, but when the building was going to be demolished, the president, I should say the publisher of the Sentinel at that time, generously gave me the building stones in the front of the building. And thanks to Eleanor West, who was the Historical Society executive director at the time, her family allowed these building stones to be temporarily stored on their farm. And I can't remember the year, but somebody bought the farm in the last maybe 20 years. And so they notified me about the stones. They didn't want them on the property. So at that time, the Putnam Place allowed those stones to be delivered to the driveway in front of the larger building on the right-hand side, if you're looking at Putnam Place. And so they eventually were given space inside that building. So there are, I don't know how many stones that are currently housed there. And when I told Keith about it, he involved a group of students who went and inventoried the stones, and there's a very nice booklet about it. And but hopefully Putnam Place will be finding somebody to occupy that space one of these days. So we have to think about what might happen to the stones.
Yes, these are brownstone, most of them intricately carved and
Beautiful.
the building was built kind of the late 19th century, right adjacent to the Faith United, what was the Faith United Church,
Right.
corner of Rollstone and Main Street. They were both designed by Fitchburg architect H.M. Francis, both utilizing the carved brownstone of kind of a Richardsonian revival a little bit, but certainly the decorative detailing of the day. And these are the two-story entrance area, the decorative stones on that part of it. And many of those are still lying loose, and we're looking for ways to be able to have these for the public to appreciate in various ways, perhaps put in parks or parts of benches and pieces like that, so that they just not buried away sometime in a landfill. So any input would be greatly appreciated on that. But one point that we talked about, maybe some of them could be used in some park areas or whatever along the rail trail. There was one piece. I did get a call from the landscape architectural firm that's working with the state project for this phase of the rail trail. And I haven't spoken with her yet, but the question about signage along the way and historic signage that we had talked with them about. So I will try to get back to them shortly and fill you in on any progress we have, and maybe possibility of incorporating some of these in rest areas and stuff along the way. It could be possible. And there certainly should be some educational linkage or signage stating what they are and where they came from, I suppose.
Well, I can update you about one of them. I knew that one of them had an R and a W representing Rodney Wallace, who built the first library, and that stone is still still there with the R and the W, and then some of this decorative carving as well. So Sharon Bernard has looked at it, and she's going to share the information with the architects for the library, the new edition, etc. So that would be a very appropriate piece to go there.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I agree with that too. No?
Thank you.
Okay, any other new business? All right, our next meeting is actually next week. We're having a meeting that will be continuing the public hearing for the Monument Park Local Historic District application by the Fitchburg Library for their renovation and expansions of the facility there. So this is the continuation. This is Wednesday afternoon starting at 3 p.m. It will be in the Legislative Building. It will also be Zoom hybrid. So hopefully we can have everyone present. As I mentioned to a couple of our members who weren't able to make the scheduled beginning of the hearing process, it's my understanding that There was presentation by the library and their design consultant, Tappe Associates or Tappe Architects. And if you, the video of that complete hearing process is on FATV. Members who want to re-review that or haven't been to it, if you review it and understand the presentation as it was made, and you wish to join the hearing process by making a statement that you have viewed the video at the beginning of our continuation, that you can join in our proceedings as a participating member of the commission. So that opportunity is out there. And if you can and will, I'd appreciate everybody's participation if you can. This is going to be held again in the legislative room. And the library and its consultant are going to be giving us some additional information, addressing some of the questions we had at the first portion of the hearing. So that is next Wednesday, December 21st, 3 p.m. at the Legislative Building. And there is a new Zoom hybrid link that I will be sending out and posting for any guests that want to have that. So I'll do a posting at the meetings, agenda meeting, and also sending out the link to the participants from the library and our commission also. The following meeting for January is the last Thursday in January, the 26th. For now, it's scheduled in room 101A, our current meeting room space. That'll be Zoom hybrid also. All right. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second.
I take that as unanimous and I declare our meeting adjourned.